Thank you for that introduction, Dr. Wilhoft. I came very close to getting on a locomotive this last summer, and I was walking right next to them, but they wouldn't actually let me on them. So maybe if I go back, I'll get the opportunity to. In addition, I would like to thank Dr. Wilhoft for his help advising me as I worked through this project. I'd also like to thank Professor Shesky. She helped me a lot in looking at what makes a valid survey and how can I look at these results once I have them. And last, I'd like to thank my wife. She sat through me presenting, and she waited up while I worked a lot of nights on this project this semester. So how often do you think that a major security breach occurs in the US every year? Now, by major security breach, I mean that sensitive information was either lost or stolen from a major company, from an educational institution, or from a nonprofit. So how many people would say probably 4 times a year, like once every quarter? Who thinks major security breach once every quarter? All right, a couple of people. How about more like maybe once a month? Who would say probably every month there was a major security breach? Anyone? All right, some more. How about anyone want to go more? Anyone want to go 3 or 4 times per month? Okay, so I see some more hands there. Well, the actual result is 265 times in a year. That's roughly once every day and a half. Once every 30 hours, a major security breach occurs. And this is according to the Privacy Rights Clearinghouse. So these are not just major breaches, or these are not just breaches of small companies. These are breaches of major companies. So you can see Target, which in 2013 lost 110 million customers' records. Now, to put that in perspective, if we were talking just about Americans, and we're not since Target is more than just in America, but if we're talking just about Americans, we'd be talking about roughly 1 in every 3 Americans would have had their identities, or would have had their information stolen. Now, the U.S. Postal Service, which all of us use pretty regularly, earlier this year they lost 750,000 employee records. Now, in addition to that, they also lost another 2.9 million records of their postal service customers. So that's us. 2.9 million records were lost. Also, Home Depot earlier this year lost 60 million records. So we can see that this is a huge issue in the corporate world and financially, but it also has an impact on our private lives. So just this past year, several celebrities, I think there were about a dozen of them on the list, these are just 3 of them, had photos leaked of them on the internet that they did not want out there. So we can see that this is important. And if we look at our personal lives, we can also think about the NSA spying on our information that we've heard a lot about. And we've heard about encryption like PGP to keep ourselves safe from that. So security is important, but what can we do? And this is where I started. So when I was looking around, I found this organization called Simply Secure. It's an organization that was put together by Dropbox, Google, and the Open Technology Fund with the goal of making security usable and available to everyone. Now, they work with the software developers, with users, with researchers, and with user experience experts in order to try to put this software together. So this leads to my question. How easy can online security be? Now, this isn't just how easy can it be, but also how easy can it be while still maintaining the same level of security that we need? So let's look at a little bit of background. Security is the state of being protected or safe from harm. This is from Merriam-Webster Online. And on online, that means we want to keep our personal information private, as well as our financial information. Now, how does this differ from privacy? Because we hear a lot about security, but we also hear a lot about privacy. Privacy is the state of being alone or away from public attention. So when we talk about security, we're typically talking about a corporate setting, so more business-oriented. Whereas privacy, we're usually talking about more of a personal setting. In this presentation, there'll be a little bit of a blurred line there, but typically we'll try to keep that distinction. So what is user experience? Well, user experience is looking at users. What do they need, what do they value, and what are their limitations when they're using an application that we've built? This diagram is from Peter Morville. He's the founder of Semantic Studios, and his company works with companies such as AT&T and Cisco to build complex applications. So what is user experience? The value of user experience is defined from around the outside. So starting with useful. your content needs to be useful in that it fulfills a need and it is original. So if we're looking to purchase a book, Amazon fulfills that need by providing the services. Now, there's a little bit of a distinction between useful and usable. When we're talking about usable, we're talking about a site being easy to use. So it's easy to read, it's easy to navigate, it's easy to find things. That leads us into our next point of findable. And this is both on the site and off the site. So not only do we need to be able to find your site, but once we get to your site, we have to be able to find what we're looking for. So going back to the example of Amazon, if we're looking for a book and we just search some general book, first off, Amazon has to come up in the search results. And then once we get to Amazon, we have to be able to get to the actual book. So that's what we mean by findable. Next, credible. So for something to be credible, it has to be, the users have to trust that what we are telling them is true. So our information needs to be accurate, and users also need to believe that it is accurate. Next, it needs to be accessible. So people from a variety of skill sets with different tools and abilities need to be able to access the site equally well. And last, we need to be desirable. People need to want to use whatever we have built, and they need to be able to use it easily. So these two areas are in constant tension. We always have the security and the usability side of things. Security always wants to put more restrictions in, and that way they can control what's coming in and out and know that information is secure. On the other hand, we look at user experience, and they're trying to open things up, make it as free as possible so users have more freedoms to do different things. Now, this isn't a unique battle. We also trade off other things for security. For example, convenience. How many of you have keys in your pockets right now? Pretty much everybody. So we take the inconvenience of carrying those keys around in order to keep things like our cars and our houses safe. Another example is security versus time. How many of you have a smartphone? How many of you have a lock on your smartphone? Now, when you do that, you're making a security decision that you want to trade off the time and convenience in order to have more security on your phone. So for this project, I put together a survey to look at what do people like and what do people dislike about security features on various things that they use. And the goal was to take out of that data and look at what are some standards that we can set for building software in the future. Here are a couple example questions. And I focused on two areas. So I focused on Facebook and the security settings and privacy settings there. And I also focused on financial institutions. And by financial institution, I mean any place that handles your money, like an investment firm, a bank, that allows you to log in online. So I broke it in two areas, and I looked at these types of questions. What do you like about the steps required to log into your Facebook security settings? And what do you dislike about the privacy checkup? So we'll dig into these a little bit more in a second. For our demographics, we had a wide range of volunteer participants, but you can see here that a majority of my participants came from the female group ages 15 to 24. So the first question I asked is, what do you like about the steps required to log into your Facebook security settings? So what do you like about the process that is required to get to this page? And not only that, what do you like about the steps required to change the settings on this page? Here's what I found. First off, people liked that it was easy to use and understand. Second, they liked that it was self-explanatory. So people didn't have to do a lot of research or look at a user guide in order to understand how to use it. Next, they liked that it was simple to complete. And they also liked that it was quick. They didn't have to take a lot of time to work on it. And finally, they liked that it was visible. It was easy to find on the page. But there's also the flip side. So there's things they liked, but there's also the things they didn't like that I asked about. 9 people said that there was nothing that they disliked. And then we also had a little bit of tension here. So we had people who liked that it was easy to use, but we also had people that didn't like how easy it was to use. Now, the reason people didn't like how easy it was to use is they felt that by it being easy to change, if someone got into their account, they would easily be able to change their security settings without having extra security in place. So there's always this tension between what people like and what they don't like, and sometimes they conflict with each other. The next thing I asked is, what do you like about the layout of the security settings? So what do you like about the tabs that are here? What do you like about the different columns and different rows and how the data is broken down? And here's what I found. Again, easy to find and read was at the top of the list. Second, easy to navigate. There were clear links. They knew exactly where everything was at. They had understandable, and they knew what was happening on the screen. Now, what did they not like? Again, there was a little bit of tension here. So, just like people thought that it was, some people thought it was easy to find, but on the flip side, some people also thought that it was hard to find. They weren't able to find the screen. So, this is just a difference between user, and we always have to balance this line between understanding what do people like and what do they dislike, and how can we work in that space where there's some ambiguity. Next, I asked, what do you like about the privacy checkup on Facebook? This has been recently added to Facebook, and it allows you to just quickly look at each of your Facebook security settings and change them if you would like to. So the first thing people liked was that it was easy to follow. The second thing was that it was quick. They also liked that it was step-by-step. They liked how it was broken down into simple categories for you to look at. They liked how it was concise. So there weren't a lot of words, but what was happening was still clear. They liked that it was thorough. They felt like it covered everything. And if they didn't feel like it covered everything, you had the learn more option where you could look at more and understand it better. And last, it was easy to find. Now on the flip side, again, we have this tension of some people liked that it was easy to find, and some people didn't know that it existed. So when we take all of that and we put it together, this is what we find. By far, the first response was, it's easy. But that's a little bit tricky because that's kind of vague. So if we take that out, this is what we find. We find these 7 categories of ways we can make security software more easy to use. First off, we can make it self-explanatory. People will have everything there at their fingertips that they need to know. Second, it's quick. Third, there's a clear layout. There are clear columns, there are clear categories. You know exactly where you are at. Next, it's visible. You don't have to go searching in order to find it. It's easy to navigate, it's step-by-step, and it's concise. So that's our summary of the first section. Then I went and looked at the financial institutions with the second part of the survey. These are just representative of some of the financial institutions that people may have been thinking of. I asked them to think of the login process to their financial institution and the various things that they liked and disliked about it. Most people said that they logged in between a few times a month and a few times a week. And most people said they had 2 to 3 steps required to log in. So here's what they liked and disliked. First off, they liked the multiple steps. They liked the multiple steps because it made them feel like more secure. Now, that leads right into the second part, which is actually feeling secure. Now, this in itself doesn't actually increase security, but it does give your users peace of mind. Next, they liked that it was easy, and they liked that it was quick. Now, two-factor authentication is the next thing that they liked. And two-factor authentication is when you require 2 pieces to log in. So the first piece is usually a password that you always know that's always the same. The second piece is usually a PIN, and that changes every time you log in and is usually texted to your phone. It just provides more security for your account. So if someone gets your password, they still have to get the PIN in order to get in. And if they get the password and PIN, they still need to get that PIN every single time in order to log into your account. And last, they liked that it hid keystrokes. So if someone was looking at their screen, no one would be able to tell what was actually there. And again, here, if we look at the dislikes, we have the tension. This between the multiple steps. So people liked the multiple steps because it made them feel more secure. But on the flip side, it took a lot more time in order to work through it. And again, with easy. So we always have that tension between the 2 pieces. So when we put this all together, this is what we find. These 4 categories are what we're looking for in financial institutions. First, multiple steps, which is pretty much required for all really secure applications. So although some people disliked it, we still have to keep it because it keeps things more secure. Next, the feeling of security is really important. And then we like that things are easy and quick. So how can we apply these to user applications in order to make them more secure? Well, the first way is that we can give step-by-step instructions, and Facebook does a really good job of this. So if you look here, each step has clear explanation. It's concise, and yet you know exactly what you're changing. You also have the option to learn more if you want to. If we go back to the benefits that we came up with Facebook, those 7 benefits, this covers 6 of them. So this is a really good design. Now how can we apply this to a financial institution? A good way to apply this to a financial institution is to provide steps for security settings that are already there. So for example, when you're logging into your account, there are different ways that you have to log into your account. And giving step-by-step instructions, with this just being one of the steps, of what can you change. So here users have the opportunity to choosing at least 2 and up to 5 or more, depending on your site, of what security options they want. This allows them to trade off based on their level of comfortability. So they can have 2 options, or they can have 5. 5 is more secure, but at the same time, it takes longer to log in. So what's the next way we can make things more secure and yet usable? We can have clear descriptions. So if we look here, Facebook does both a good job and a bad job at this. If you look at the first category, who can see your future posts? Friends. That's very clear. We know exactly what's happening. When we post to the future, only our friends are going to be able to see what we're posting. But on the flip side, if we look at the third option, we see limit the audience for posts you've shared with friends of friends or public. That's not really clear exactly what's happening there. So in one case, we have a very clear description of what we're looking at, and in the other case, we have much more vague description. Again, the application to a financial institution would look somewhat like this. We have clear categories, and we have a clear description of exactly what it is that we are changing in each category. Now, the final way that we can make secure software easy to use is by making it easy to find settings. And Facebook does a really bad job at this. So if you look here on the left, you see the little down arrow that goes to settings. You have to go under there, and then you have to click on another tab in order to get to your security settings. So it's not really clear where you have to go. If you know you have to go down the down arrow, then you still have to get through the barrier of not knowing that it's under settings to get to your security settings. Now the privacy checkup does a little bit better. It has the lock icon, which is starting to become standard for indicating security, but it's still not completely standard, so there's still a little bit of ambiguity about whether we're going into security settings there. So a better way we could do it is like this. We can have both the text saying security and have the lock icon. Because if you're looking at this page, you know exactly where you need to go in order to access the security settings. If you were looking at the other page, there's some ambiguity until you've been in it one or two times in order to find it. Now for financial institutions, this can look almost exactly the same. You can have the exact same link there taking you to the settings so that you know exactly where you're going. So where can I take this in the future? Well, the first place is to other social media sites. So Facebook I looked at pretty extensively, but what about Twitter? What are we going to do with the security setting on Twitter? And what ones do they even have? Do they have the same ones as Facebook? And do we even want to use them in the same way? Same thing with Instagram and LinkedIn. So I want to look at these and see what are the similarities between the sites and what are some best practices that we can use as we continue to develop new security applications and implement old ones in order to have more usable software. The next thing that I want to look at, and this I think is the most interesting, is what do we do about different demographics? So what about the group of people who are living in foreign countries, like journalists or missionaries? Now, they're not always in places where people are very happy that they're there. So what can we do in order to make security software, the most usable for them? Now, they're willing to put up with a little more, likely, to keep themselves safe than other people are. So where is that fine line, and what sort of settings can we change? Also, looking at the elderly. They have a little bit more of an adverse feeling to security and to online applications. How can we work with them to make them feel most secure and to actually keep them most secure online? And finally, looking at corporations. So when you're online at your business, you're not only looking at how are you going to keep yourself safe and secure online, but you're also looking at how can I keep this company safe and secure. So I think it'd be really cool to look at these different areas and see how do these different areas work together. Finally, I'm going to take these results and I'm going to submit them to Simply Secure, which I talked about at the beginning. My hope is that these results can serve as kind of the basis of the secure software that we are building. My hope is that within the next few years, we will have secure software that both maintains the same level of security and also provides a new level of usability. Thank you. Are there any questions?
So Tim, I just got a message on Facebook that they're updating their privacy settings very soon.
Yes.
Have you looked into that? I mean, I'm sure you have, but how is that? Are they taking these kinds of things into account? Is that going to be much better? Or what are those in response to, maybe?
To be honest, I actually haven't had a chance to look at those yet. I just saw them a couple days ago. Yeah. But I think it was was it last week, late last week? They are changing their settings. I haven't looked at them, so I'm not entirely sure how to respond to that. I don't really know where they're going with that. So.
But you noted, and I think it's important, that like they did add this privacy checkup, which is a great step forward. So
Yes.
I assume it has something more usability
Yeah,
in mind.
Yeah, Facebook has kind of a history of being a little bit wishy-washy about privacy. So based on their history, it's a little bit unnerving because they may be adding new things that we don't really like. But at the same time, looking at the privacy checker, there's kind of a trend up. So it's hard to say until we've actually looked at it what it will be.
Thanks.
You're welcome. Julia.
When Facebook added that privacy checkup thing, like I'm one of those people that did not know that that even existed. Was there a notification with that? Like when we get general broad updates about we've updated our policy, is that like something that's mentioned under there?
I don't remember it being there. I think a typical way that people handle new things like that is they have like a little pop-up that will show up like the first time. I don't remember whether Facebook did that when they first put it in or not. Yes,
You mentioned the NSA. I'm curious as to whether or not you've seen Citizen 4.
No, haven't seen.
You know what it is, though? The documentary about Edward Snowden and that whole...
I'm familiar with the situation, not with the documentary.
It's absolutely fascinating.
Okay.
I mean, riveting.
All right. Yeah, I'll have to check it out. Thank you.
Cultural life film.
Any other questions?
So Tim,
Yes.
if you think it is easy, relatively easy, to make it secure, whatever the site is secure, why do we have 600 or 265 a year, major, let alone minor things going on?
Yeah, well, I would say probably the biggest thing is it's always a catch-up game. So when you're looking at keeping something secure, you're looking at what are the possible ways I can be attacked and where are weaknesses in what I'm doing. And the difficult thing is that the attackers are always looking at how to break through that barrier. And so they're always innovating while you're trying to always innovate. So a lot of times security is more of a catch-up to what the attackers are doing rather than being more proactive and keeping ahead of it. Now, proactive is really where you want to be, but even if you're being proactive and you're building new software, new applications, and strengthening what you already have, it's a lot of attackers on your one system, and someone eventually finds some way around it. So it's very difficult to do. Does that
There will
answer your
always
question?
be a job for you.
Yes. Yes, Ashley.
For all those huge companies that had major breaches in the privacy, what is done to kind of recover that information, and typically what information exactly is like stolen? Is that all like credit cards, that sort of information? But like how do they even go about recovering millions of people's info?
Yeah, so there's a variety of information that's lost. Sometimes it's personal information like where you live, your phone number, email address, and then sometimes it is credit card records or various things like that. So it's a variety of things that are stolen. And the way they go about it is, first off, they're required, depending on the severity and things, they're usually required to report it. So they're required to let everyone in their company know. We've had an attack, we're not sure exactly the extent, and then that makes you aware. And a lot of it is kind of on the person in the end, so they usually have to go through, get a new card, change information, those sorts of things. But a lot of time companies will take a proactive step and they'll say, hey, your card may have been compromised, here's a new card. So they'll take steps like that. They also go back and they look at their system. So systems keep logs of everything that's happened in their system, so they can see the traffic that's been there and the different things that have happened. So then they patch up that hole and they try to investigate fully exactly what happened to as big of a degree as they can. So, does that answer your question?